Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to What's Your Decision? This is my custom position that I have created, and I'm in this video going to be continuing my theory of this custom position. So in the first video that I made on this position was an introduction showing the common themes, the themes of the position, as well as some sample games and just a little bit of openings. So if you're new to this, you might want to check that out. The second video was going over lines with 1e4, which I'm not going to cover today as we already went over that in the last video. However, this video is going to be covering the lines with 1f4. And so 1e4 was more of a positional line, although there were some very tactical lines within it. But the general idea of the opening was for white to defend the f6 pawn with this e pawn. Black was going to do a similar thing, and both sides were just trying to develop their pieces. There were some different pawn sacrifices for activity, but in general, the concept was pretty straightforward. This video focuses on 1f4. And it's actually part of a three-part series on this opening because there's just so much theory to go through. So let's get into it. So the idea with 1f4 is that we want to play f5 next, and what this f5 move is going to be is it's going to actually be a pawn sacrifice, as this pawn on g6 is able to take on f5. But the whole reason for us playing this is because we want to play this f2 pawn. We want to be able to play f2 to f4, and then play rook to f3, and then sacrifice on c3. So it seems like a lot of moves in a plan that for white it would just take a really long time. However, once we start playing it, you'll just see how powerful this idea is for white. And it can be very, very difficult for black to defend this. So there are several defenses that black can try to this. So two quick defenses I can show you. They're actually more like setup. So one would be c5 for black, d5 and d4, just trying to protect this c3 pawn. And this is what we're going to be going over today, as well as with g takes f5, and also lines where the pawn doesn't take on f5. So this is everything I'm going to be covering in this video, and it's going to be quite a long one. The summary is that after this, you really have to know how to play this as white, because this is the most intuitive and common thing you're going to see. However, I would not recommend playing this for black. As in most lines, black is losing, and even in some where black might be able to hang on, it's very difficult for black, and white is at least better in all of these lines that I've looked at so far. So you probably don't want to be playing this setup, but as you'll face it a lot, and it's very difficult to see how to take advantage of this setup. So you really have to learn it. Another setup, which is a better one that I would more recommend, is for black to play c5, c6, knight c7, and then knight f5, defending the c3 pawn that way. That's what I would recommend. Or also this move after f4, there's also knight e6, but right now we're just going to be covering our first idea. So let's get started. So f4 is on the board. That's the move to start it, and it's worth noting that this can transpose into the e4 line, as if white doesn't play f5 next and just plays e4, then we already have a transposition. And for this opening, it doesn't matter if black plays d5 first or c5 first, as in this particular variation they can transpose, but we'll just put c5 right now. And now here's the move that is played. It's f5. So this is the move by white. So actually, for this opening, if black plays g takes f5, black has already lost. And I'm going to show you why. So let's look at so d5 is the main move. C6 would be the main move here, but if we're going into that opening variation, then d5 would be. But let's look at g takes f5. So if g takes f5, white continues with the plan I outlined by playing f4. Black plays d5 to try and defend the c3 pawn, which is going to be weak. Rook f3 is played, and d4. So as you can see, black has defended the c3 pawn with some pawn moves, and white is going to now try to attack this d4 pawn. It's going to try to attack this d4 pawn in order to weaken this c3 pawn as well and be able to sacrifice. So white's going to play e3 over here, which is now the bishop is also aimed at this. The bishop is also aimed at this pawn, as well as the pawn, and this pawn's going to be weak. So we have over here we have black adds a defender with knight e6. We're going to look at bishop c6 as well, but first let's look at knight e6. White is going to take, bishop takes d4, knight takes d4, and rook takes c3. So as we can see in this variation, white is able to force the sacrifice. So right now the computer here thinks that black is better with c5. However, after several moves, the computer is going to be able to see that white's being able to free their queen and bishop is very important over here. So I will follow the line further. So c5 is played to defend the knight and also to defend the b4 square. White plays knight f3. Uh, Rook d8 is played over here. Rook d3, knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, rook takes, pawn takes, knight c7, d4 is played to try and weaken the structure, knight e6, takes, and rook d1. Bishop c7 to try and go to d8 and attack the f6 pawn. You take the pawn there, knight goes to f2, bishop b5, and the knight goes to g4. So as you can see here, white has freed their queen and bishop, and now with knight to g4, white defends this this f6 pawn very well. So it's defended by the knight, and it's also defended by the queen over here, and black's not going to be able to get their queen out. And as you can see here, the computer is reevaluating the position, thinking that white is definitely better over here. So should full screen this. There we go. So that's essentially how this can go. There can be some variations in the line here, but after white's able to get out their queen, they're able to play very well over here. If we go here, rook to c6, that's another move that that black has, and so rook c6 maybe even looks better than rook d8 because rook c6 is aimed at this f6 pawn. So black is going to try to sacrifice themselves and free their queen as well. But white is still winning over here. Knight takes d4, and now if black takes back, then white's just going to be able to take on c6, and then the queen is going to come and take on d4 and going to protect f6, and so white should be fine over here. So that's why after knight takes d4, to continue with this plan, black would free their queen with rook takes f6, not worrying about the knight. However, white has a tactic that makes this winning. Rook takes c5 check, and so you'll see that in this custom position there are lots of like rook takes and like rook sacrificing for pawn ideas. But the idea of this rook sacrifice is that the knight's going to move next as well, and this queen is going to pin this rook on f6 to the queen, and it's going to win one of those pieces. So let's see how the top engine line is. So b takes c5. Bishop h5 is actually played. So actually this is a very important move. So you see in this position, and even because this is extremely tactical, the computer is able to find the best moves here. So bishop h5 is a crucial move that might not be very intuitive, but the point of this move is that if let's say if white wants to play knight c6 check, and now it wants to pin the rook to the queen, right, as we've seen before. But now the problem is that after let's say white develops a bishop over here, then we just have rook takes h6 check, and because this queen would be hanging over here, but because rook takes h6 check is a check. White has to take it, and then white's going to lose the queen on a1. So that's why in this position, bishop h5. Bishop h5 is the best move because it prevents, like, rook takes h6 is no longer with check. So so black would play it anyways over here, because if black's not taking on h6, then let's say black tries to play, I don't know, rook d6, and after knight check for white, then black's queen is the one falling. So you have to be very careful for the tactics here. So in this position, black is going to try to take on h6, this time not with check, but after here we have knight c6 check, bishop takes, queen takes h8, and after bishop d6, white is just winning over here. And you'll note that there's kind of no better move for black. So I showed a couple moves ago how if black played a move like rook d6, black would be losing, but black's going to lose this rook anyways if they don't move it. And so let's say they play bishop d6 now. Just knight takes f5 over here, and the rook is pinned. So like if bishop goes to here, then white is just going to take, and the queen is actually trapped once again in the corner, and also white is up material, and this is defended, as well as white can play knight f2 to g4 and defend this further, as well as maybe sometimes in the future g4 and g5. So there's no way black is going to be able to free their queen, and this is just completely losing. So we're not done with this yet, but that's kind of the gist of actually why g takes f5 is losing. There's one more move I wanted to show, which was it was bishop b5, 5 bishop b5. Bishop c6, sorry. So is this. So after e3 by white, you might think that bishop c6 over here is a good move, as you are of course attacking the rook. So we saw that after knight e6, that after white just forcefully takes on in the center and sacrifices the g1 bishop, white will still win, as they'll free their pieces. So in this variation with 5 bishop c6, black is trying to attack this rook on f3, so it can no longer be involved in the sacrificing on c3. But actually, this too is losing for black. And so g takes f6, that whole variation over here is actually, I'll get to it when we go to the other variations where black is not taking on f5. The reason black is not doing it is because to gain basically one extra tempo, because black's pawns over here become very weak and attacked. So the more moves black has, the more opportunity they have to defend it. And g takes f5 is a move that is not going for the defense of these pawns, which is why it is not the greatest. So bishop c6 looks like it might be good, but e takes d4. The black is going to take on f3. And actually, there are two moves here, and both are better for white. So I'll go for bishop takes f3 first. In this move, if black were to take back, then just bishop takes d4, and the c3 is going to fall. So that's why after this move, black looks to develop pieces. So they'll play c6 to free their dark square bishop and their a8 knight. So we have pawn takes c5, and knight e6 is important because white is threatening to bring the bishop to d4. So we want to play the knight there. So after knight e6, we have knight d3, knight ac7. So now white is just developing pieces, but you'll note that white is going to bring the knight to d1, and it's going to be able to sacrifice on c3. So first, black tries to defend with knight b5. Bishop f2 is coming, rook fe8, bishop e1, and you can see that white is just overwhelming on the square. So bishop d6 is tried, white cashes in and frees their pieces, then goes for an attack, And bishop f8 is a move to try and sacrifice on h6, maybe get out the queen, but as you can see in the sample variation, white is just going to get in. So actually I showed quite a few moves over here. Those obviously don't have to occur, but the general idea is still the same. Just showed this all the way until there's a checkmate on the board. Just to show over here, and black can never get out their queen. So if we want to go back a few more moves, to over here, I wanted to show one more thing in this variation. What was it? Still some moves before. Right, so over here, if knight e8, if knight e8, we just have knight takes b4. So you might be thinking in this position, if black were to play knight e8, then they're threatening themselves. It's time to sacrifice on f6, but knight takes b4 is on the board, and of course if king takes, then knight's going to go to d3 with check, and black's going to get mated. So after here, b takes c5. If black tries to free their queen, then white is just going to be quicker because white has even knight takes c6, but also queen takes c3, and this queen is pinned, but more importantly, this king is about to get checkmated. So this is not an opportunity for black, so black's not going to be able to free their own queen. Yeah, so that is generally the gist of this g takes f5 lines. So just seeing. Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to show. So that was after bishop takes f3. We had bishop takes f3 back. And the other move that white has here that is also winning for white is knight takes f3. So after knight takes f3, black plays c6 to try and get their pieces out. Knight's going to go to e5. And over here you see that this move is threatening to play knight c4 check, bishop e2, and black's king on a5 is going to get mated. So the main move over here for black, best move is just to play bishop takes e5. But if black were to play b5, which stops knight c4 check, white can just take on c5 with the pawn. And after bishop takes anyways, black has no black can play knight e6 over here to try and stop bishop d4, which is going to be white's plan over here, but white should be better because they've taken on c5, so this c3 pawn is going to be weak, and any piece can get there. So if I were to even play and white also has this e5 pawn, which is going to be defending. So these pawns are going to be very strong. These three pawns over here. White is probably going to follow up with like something like bishop f3, knight f2, knight d1, and takes. And if this knight ever moves, then even bishop d4 ideas. So white is just clearly better over here. So going back, so b5 is not black's not going to want to play b5, but the main move here is bishop takes e5. After which we play d takes e5, and after knight e6, this is just again going to be better for white because of the same reason as the last variation, where white has all these strong pawns, so black's not really going to be able to sacrifice, or at least not easily. Meanwhile, black's only defense of c3 is this b4 pawn, and maybe even something like bishop f2, bishop e1 can be played. So white just is just completely better over here, if not winning. Although the computer doesn't really seem to recognize this yet because the computer doesn't exactly understand setting up for a sacrifice that well. But white is strategically winning in this position. So that is quite quite some time we spent covering g takes f5. So after here, this was the line with g takes f5, and white should be winning if black plays this. It's actually quite common in this is that, which is a bit harder to, I guess, I'm not sure that it's completely refuted, but white is definitely has all the chances after d5 over here. So black can play d5 and decline the gambit of f5. And the reason why black would do this is that black wants to basically gain another tempo in defending the c3 pawn so that white is not able to gobble it up as easily as we saw with the g takes f5 line. And also if black can get like a knight to d4 or something, then this f5 pawn could be taken with check. And then also this pawn could fall as well. So that's another reason why they might not want to take. So this one's a bit is a bit more involved, and it's going to be quite a bit of time to cover this variation. But okay, so after e5 we have f4, bishop b5. So there are two moves over here, which are bishop to b5 and also bishop to d7. So three bishop d7. So that's I'm just writing that down so I cover that next. So bishop b5 is the move over here, the main move that I think at least. So I've written a comment here. I think this is black's best shot at not losing this opening. However, for many complications, black still used to be losing. So bishop b5, and there are going to be many complications. So yeah, bishop b5, rook f3. So rook f3 is the same idea as we covered before. So d4, black again tries to defend, and again white plays e3. So this looks exactly like our last variation. So over here in the g takes f5 variation, we had knight e6 on the board. Now if black plays knight e6, white has a pawn over here. But you might still think of playing it because you might think that, well, if white's going to take on e6, then after black takes back, black's queen and bishop are going to be freed. So actually, this might not look like a bad move, but in fact, it is a bad move. So I'll just quickly show this why. So you'll take it. You'll play f takes e6. Um, f takes e6, e takes d4. So now if black takes back, then white's going to play bishop takes d4 and is going to be able to free with the sacrifice, as well as also if the bishop's on d4, then it eyes this queen, and this pawn could like move and potentially have a discovered attack on the queen if the bishop is defended. But let's cover the line. So rook takes f6. So I think I covered in previous video that sometimes in this opening, like rook takes f6 or rook takes c3, even after the pieces are freed, is an idea, as if white were to take back, well, in this position, white would be mated, but even in other positions, it kind of like weakens white's pawns and frees up some space for black. So rook takes f6, rook takes c3, c takes d4, rook c4 is played, offering the exchange, but also attacking black's pawns. And if black were to take, there might be there'd be more of an attack for white. So for example, if we play bishop takes c4, oh yeah, then bishop takes d4 actually is right over here, and this rook is pinned, this queen is blocked behind here, and black is lost on the spot. So actually, yeah, that's why they can't take. So I c5 has to be played over here. Bishop takes d4 is going to be played anyways. And now if we take back, then black's rook is going to be lost. So black tries to play e5 because the bishop defends over there. But just takes, and black is losing a piece over here. Takes. The rook is going to be able to take on e1 though. But after knight f2, if we count all this material, white is up 6 points of material. However, white's going to be up 3 points of material after something like, I don't know, like this. But yeah, white should be easily better over here. Is also this f6 pass pawn. Black doesn't really have any promotion ideas like immediately due to these two strong pawns for white. It's true that white's bishop is rook is kind of trapped right now, but white will soon get it out, and black will be preoccupied with pawn promotion. So white is just winning this game. So going back, let's see what we were looking at. Right, so that's after knight e6. That's why black has actually lost, and so knight c6 must be black's best attempt to again defend this d4 pawn more. So now and it does appear to defend right now, and so white is not going to win like immediately. Like we saw like an immediate captures in the center, and white was able to become better and free their queen. That's in this line under best play. It's not going to happen right away, but you'll notice the big weakness with knight c6 is that this bishop and this knight are not going to get out for a while because the c7 pawn is stuck. And if we look at it, this b5 bishop, while it is staring like through a diagonal, it's not like attacking a piece right now, and it can't really move anywhere. So and let's say if black moves this c6 knight, then its whole idea to defend the d4 pawn is going to be gone. So basically, black has frozen all their pieces in an attempt to defend, and that's how white's going to take advantage. So we have knight c6, um, uh, and then white takes e takes d4. So I have a note over here that white can play knight d3, which is bailing out on the rook takes c3 plan. Um, but then white has already given up basically their advantage in this opening. So white's going to have to play e takes d4 to continue with the objectives of this opening. Just developing a piece with knight d3 is not the best idea, as it as white's whole like pawns over here could become a bit weaker if white is not going to be able to sacrifice on c3 as a result of those concessions that white made. So we're going to see e takes d4. Yeah, e takes d4, knight takes d4. So if we quickly just look at c takes d4, we'll see that that white actually has a white has a white is actually winning in this position, most likely. So it goes knight d3. So actually, what I want to go over first is that you might think, just like the g takes f5 idea, you might think that over here playing bishop takes d4 works, but it actually doesn't. Bishop takes d4, knight takes, rook takes d3, and then now before there used to be a black pawn on f5, but there isn't now, so black can play knight takes f5, check, white plays king g4, and this move is actually important. So black wants to play knight takes h6 check, but but c5 is just a better move, as it also is going to allow a rook to come to c6, and this pawn can just be taken later. So we have c5, rook d3 is played, bishop takes d3, knight takes d3, knight c7, knight e5, b5, c3, now knight check. So it's important not to take back, because then the queen is going to be taking on f6. But black's going to be able to get the queen out eventually through something like h6, h takes, and then the queen will be open on the h file, or at least semi-open, because there'll still be pawns there. So knight d5, and actually black is winning over here because knight is black doesn't even have to move the knight and go for this whole idea to free the queen on the h file, because black's able to get a knight over here, and the knight's going to sacrifice on f6 anyways. So f6 is going to fall over here, and black has already have 5 points of material because white sacrificed on c3. So black's only going to be able to have to sacrifice one knight, and so with less sacrifices, just be up material and they'll be winning. So what's an important key note in this sort of opening is that we don't want to rush our sacrifice on c3, because see, we sacrifice a bishop and a rook, and in this variation I just showed, black only had to then in the end sacrifice one knight, so we are just down a full piece. So bishop takes d4 is not the move over here, but actually playing knight d3 is the main line over here. So knight d3 works very well here. And the idea is that, so So in the previous variation, we said knight d3 is kind of bails out on the plan, but in our variation over here, you'll see that this move actually doesn't, and in fact, it puts lots of pressure on b4, and as well as d4 is already pressured, so this knight is trapped. This knight on c6 cannot move, and if it cannot move, then these two pieces for black are no longer in the game. So this bishop, if bishop takes, then white gets out the pieces. So essentially, and these two pieces here are black blocks. So I'll also put the bishop in red because it's not wanting to sacrifice on d3. So therefore, it has no moves as the knight blocks it. So basically, black is only playing with two rooks. So this is bad. So knight d3. Rook c d8 puts more protection on d4. G4 is played. So G4 is played, uh, which defends that. Yeah, so G4 can be played, but also if we look at we over here, I want to show knight takes b4, which I have a note on this. It says this move is actually going to free the queen, but it's also losing for white due to a complicated variation. So after knight takes b4, we have knight takes b4, bishop takes d4, rook takes, queen takes, so white frees the queen. C5 defends the pieces, queen e1, and then this move, like it's just wow, like bishop e5 is just a really tactical shot and just a really good move. That's actually winning for black. Of course, this is trying to sacrifice on f6, but if we play queen takes e5, rook e8, and guess what? White's queen is trapped in the center of the board. Right, so that's the idea behind bishop e5 is that, well, white cannot take it with the f-pawn because the rook is, like, it's pinned to the king. So bishop e5 is just going to sacrifice on f6 and then be completely winning for black. But if, surprising, this is amazing fact, if white takes on e5, then after rook e8, note that the bishop is defending the rook, it's not hanging a rook. After rook e8, white's queen is actually trapped. And so this is why this is just winning for black. So white sacrifices the queen and plays c3 looking for compensation, but after rook d6, black is going to free their own pieces. So actually over here, this is a bishop c6 is the best move over here, which gets the rook to move first. Then rook takes f6, and black is going to be better here as white has had to sacrifice uh, their their queen. But if you look at the evaluation, black, it's not like completely over for white, but black is definitely going to be better in this position. So if we just have something like this, g takes f5, bishop f5, queen takes h6, and actually you'll see over here material is even, but white should be black should be slightly better over here. As there's like a bit better coordination of black's pieces. The diagonals do very well for black because this position is a bit more closed, so the rooks are not going to be as good, as well as you'll see black has two strong pawns over here, so white's promotion efforts are going to be weakened. Black is going to have more of a shot. But yeah, this can actually, I guess, still be played for white, but it's better for black. So if I just go back, yeah, so the main move over here for white to play, instead of knight takes b4, is g4, which is going to defend the f5 pawn, and it could also just free up these g3 square for the knight, or the knight could come to e4. So as you can see over here, white is not pushing it too far because black can't really move their pieces. So rook fe8 is played, knight g3, rook d6, and And again, so we have so bishop f2 is the main move over here, but knight takes b4, again it's the wrong time. So white has to be really accurate in this position to make the sacrifices at the right time. So if knight takes b4 over here, I'll quickly go through the moves because it's similar to what we saw before. And yeah, it is quite similar actually. Now it's saying a computer likes black even better because black has now developed like the two rooks into the game. So it's kind of like the knight takes b4 sacrifice we saw earlier. However, this time black is even more developed. So you don't want to do that. Bishop f2 is played, and rook d7. So over here you might be wondering, so rook d7, let me explain to you. Rook d7 basically does nothing. It's just a back and forth move. You can see here black has developed their rooks to the best squares, and as I showed before, basically all black's pieces are frozen. So, but let's just quickly look at rook takes f6 and why this doesn't work. And the reason this doesn't work is actually due to the tactical shot knight takes b4. So now knight takes b4 works. And the whole idea here is that the rook has to be on the d file because it has to be helping to defend d4. Once the rook moves off, even to free their own queen, black no longer has enough defense over d4. So we have knight takes b4, rook d6 back to get the queen out and also to defend, but it's all for nothing. Knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, rook d4. So actually the queen right now is even defending over here as well. So it looks like black might be coming out of this alive, but after b5, which is to develop the knight and also keep all the defense over here. Oops, that's not the right diagonal. It's like this. Then bishop takes anyways, rook takes, and then queen takes c3 check, and even so, like white can play rook takes d4 even, or queen takes d4, but just this threatens mate. And you just see that this is just a dominating position for white. White's one material is up material as well. Black has to worry about f6 being played in the future. So if black plays f6 themselves, I mean, white is just up material, and black's gonna have to spend moves to get the queen into the game, as well as black's king being weak. It's just over for black. So that is why rook takes f6 cannot be played. So if rook takes f6 cannot be played for black, then black basically cannot do anything really in this position. So rook d7, which I'm telling you does nothing, bishop e2, rook d6. So you see black is just moving back and forth, and this is why I think even in this variation where for me, I think it looks the best for black in these types of lines, it's still kind of losing because this knight c6 move, which had to be played by black, just squashes all activity for these other two pieces and traps the bishop as well. And if all those pieces are trapped, then these pieces are trapped forever as well, and thus the rook, if the rook can sacrifice, the rooks can't. So black can do nothing basically, and white has all the time in the world. So let's see how white it's going to break through rook e7, rook e7, and now it's important. So you only sacrifice on b4 once white has gotten all the development. So we're going to see what happens. So knight takes b4. So now we're going to see why this move works. So we have this. So actually, if king takes, it's I don't know why I have that here. If knight takes, then we're gonna. If knight takes b4, bishop takes b5. Rook takes, queen takes c3. It's saying rook, I'm looking at the computer's lines right now, rook ed8. And I don't know, bishop takes b5 is fine, a takes b5. And yeah, so as you can see over here, white has freed their pieces, and also they have just as much control in the center as black. So white should be winning over here. Let's play a couple more moves. Queen e3, c5 is what you would play. So c5 falls to c3, right? So if we have rook d2, which seems fine, knight e4. rook d1. So I just looked at some moves over here. I didn't have this in my notes, but yeah, I mean, rook takes knight c3 even, and black's king is getting hunted. White has all the pieces. White has all the pieces. Here they are. So the queen, the rook, the knight is in the game. This bishop is even defended. Black has one rook in the game. It's just winning for white. So this variation is just completely winning. But white has to be really accurate in this position in order to win it. And there's so many ways where white can mess up, but if you know it well enough, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for black. So this was after 6 e takes d4. Now we also have knight takes d4, which is another move that black can try. However, this one, I have it in the notes, the only line that is not losing for black. However, I think it's still losing. Might have to update that, but let's see how it is. So this move is also still losing, contrary to what my outdated comment over there. Like, I'm constantly coming up with new theory of this position, so at some point I thought this was not losing, but we're going to see knight takes f5, king g4, knight takes h6 check. So we've seen a similar line to this before, but so king f3. So again, white's not going to take on h6 because f6 falls. Rook fe8, knight d3, bishop's going to take. Knight f5. So now we're black is preparing h6 takes and getting the queen into the game. Maybe queen h5 check. But c3, so c6 is played over here, and then rook d7. So c6 kind of getting out the pieces. Let me quickly see. Yeah, I mean, if we continue with what I just said about h6, we have rook d5, and yeah, the king is weak. This pawn's gonna fall. Everything's gonna fall. So yeah, see. So over here, it's like really tactical. You have to see. c6 has to be on the board. Rook d7 is going to the 7th rank, and as we know in standard chess, that's very strong. And yeah, so white should be better over here because white's gonna take and gonna get out the queen and the rook and all the pieces. And for black to be able to get out the queen, you have to play a couple moves over here. Even if queen check over here, if just king f2, this bishop is staring at the square, so the queen's gonna have a very hard time getting out. There's no immediate sacrifices, so white can play on f6, and after takes, then this white queen will see f6 as well. So black is just losing in this position, and I see I gave the engine some more time to think, and as I gave it more time, the evaluation kept going up for white. So yeah, this is also losing for black. Let's go back a few moves. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show for here. We still do have one other variation I want to go through. Yeah, it's a long video, but you're learning how to counter this variation and why I think you shouldn't play it as black. Though of course it is the most intuitive variation, so you're going to see this a lot. And if you can get through all this tactics and know when to play which moves, you find yourself winning in most cases here. So as I said, bishop e5, so looking back at my note here, I think this is black's best shot at not losing the opening. However, after many complications, black still appears to be losing. So that is bishop b5. But we also have, let me just quickly look. So I have d4 in the lines over here. As black, you wouldn't want to play d4 here because you're like white can just play e3 and take in the center without having to play rook f3 first. So you've definitely gained a tempo. So over here, I don't know, maybe there's still a f takes e6 line over here. Yeah, there probably is. If we have knight over here, knight c6, yeah. But this should be better for white because again, you're getting a tempo because you don't have to play rook f3. So in my lines, I had knight e6. Probably you can still play f takes e6 over here as well too. So yeah, d5 is a bad move over here, but the second move I really wanted to show was bishop d7, which so there's a key distinction in this move between bishop d7 and bishop b5, which was played in the other line. So as we saw, bishop b5 looked like the bishop was coming to a good square, but after knight to c6, the bishop kind of just got blocked. And so bishop d7 is a move that we appear to try to like not block the bishop on b5, but so I'm going to play through the moves. So you'll see it's very common stuff that's played. Knight c6 again must be played, and again these pieces are going to be blocked. However, this bishop is not blocked, so in some ways you could think of this as better for like a better variation for black, but actually still not very good. So g4 is played to protect f5, rook fe8, knight g3 is played. Yeah, so in this variation you can play a couple of moves. If we have so knight g3 is the main move. We have knight d3, d takes, rook takes again, bishop f2, knight d4, bishop f3, c6, take, rook d1, c5, bishop takes, bishop e6, knight g3, knight c7. This is quite a long line. You bring your knight to the center. Knight, so the knight's going to go to b5 here instead of the bishop. So black's actually defending very well on c3. And yeah, this is actually the end of this variation, and I would say that white is slightly better due to the strong knight on e4, but not by that much, which is why this is not the main variation over here. What was it? Which was knight d3, right? Yeah, knight d3 is not the main variation over here. We have 7 knight g3, and you'll see that this is just better because knight's going to go to e2, and now it's just going to be pointing at both of these pawns. So with the knight d3 variation, like one of the variations we saw before where I commented that knight d3 was kind of like bailing out on the rook takes c3 plan, we see that similar over here. So white has to play more actively to win the game. So here white's able to win c3, and although black wins the piece over here is a very nice move. So it uses the king safety sort of theme of the position. So if we play rook takes c5 bishop, now the bishop's on take on c5, and b4 is really weak. And so you'll see that even though white just sacrifices rook over here, white's going to play c3 next, and this king is just in big trouble. This bishop's going to come to d3, the queen's going to come out to, like, I don't know, d4 maybe. This pawn's weak, everything's going to fall for black. And also when the bishop goes to d3, there's like fork of this rook that could happen. So yeah, everything's falling apart, and white is just winning. So, and again, once again, just like and over here, it's worth noting that so when white took on d4, knight takes d4, there was never any knight f5 plans because the pawn is on f5. And so white can forcefully take on c3 and be winning over here. So let's go to a couple more variations. So 8 knight d3. So now white plays knight d3 over here, and again, same sort of idea. You're probably not the best move over here, but still should be fine. And we're just showing knight takes d4 here, and white taking on c3. If pawn takes d4, we have knight. Again, white's going to give up a piece, but rook takes c3. But black's going to be able to take another piece over here. Rook d4, rook d3, and white is down 2 pieces this time, but same plans are going to happen with c3 and the weaknesses over here. And this knight is blocking everything, so knight takes d4 is going to be played over here. It's probably the best move here. Queen takes. We have c5 to be played, and actually queen takes g1. So white's going to win back the material and just be better because they free their pieces. But if not c5, let's see. Rook h1, the computer also likes rook h1. Then we have oh, c3, and it's just getting mated. So Black actually even loses the rook there, so winning 2 pieces, but eventually losing the rook is quite bad. So let's get back to the main line, which was this, which we showed. Right, and I think that is that line. So right, yeah. And if black doesn't want to take on f5 because black wants to get a knight to f5 eventually, um, there isn't much they can do because again these pieces are blocked by this knight. So again this knight on c6 is like doing really bad for black. So actually you might think that, oh, the g takes f5 variation that we covered first in the video is good because at least in that variation the knight could come to could come to e6, but because that lost a tempo and black was losing that variation anyways. So now in this variation black is losing because the knight on c6 just blocks everything. So it really is unfortunate. Yeah, knight e2, and yeah, I mean, black thinks bishop, like bishop c8. Bishop c8 could be another try. Let's take a look quickly over here. Pretty even likes f takes g6. I don't trust that though. Hmm. Knight d3. We're just not gonna play g takes f5. So rook d6 is over here. Can use that on the board. I don't know, bishop e takes d4, c takes d4. Yeah, knight takes b4 actually works in this position. Knight takes b4. Let's see what. Yeah, knight takes b4, bishop takes, and yeah, white's just gonna free the pieces anyway. So yeah. So if black, so yeah, so when I had black taking on f5 there, I mean there wasn't much black could do, and yeah, even in this position, so white is just winning. Okay, so 3 bishop d7 we covered, and I think that might actually be. Let me make sure that's it for this video. But oh, we have here d4 rook f8. Yeah, we showed that. C takes, rook takes, rook c8. Should we have? Let me go through the main line again, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So yeah, just to recap, the reason why white is just winning in this side, yeah, so even here knight goes back to f5, rook c3 gets played. So yeah, white is winning in all these lines. So going back to the beginning, basically the main thing to keep in mind in this opening is that you play f4 and f5, so that you can advance the f2 pawn to f4 and bring the rook to f3 and then sacrifice on c3 eventually. You want to play a pawn to e3 as well against like these sort of setups where black goes over here, and basically there's quite a lot of complications, especially in the main lines for white to get through. But if white gets through them, white should be winning. And that's why, even though I think it's the most common and most intuitive way for black to play, black really shouldn't play like this. And so there'll be 2 more videos on this opening where we're going to show 2 like other responses that black has, 2 other setups. So one of them is basically for c5, and then once f5 plays, you're going to play c6, and then like f4, knight is going to go to c6, rook over here, and knight to b5. So that's another way to play this position, and that, in my opinion, is definitely better for black. Though it's kind of hard to find because you have to get the knight there, but protecting this pawn with this b5 knight will do good because there's no e3 and it's harder for black to just to take. Um, it's harder for white to take. So that's another idea. And after f4, black can just play knight to e6, and then if f5, black doesn't have to, but this is quite like black can just take on g5 over here, and in these lines black does pretty well. So those are the 2 different two different ideas that black has against f4 that in my opinion are definitely much better than this c5 d5 d4 idea for black, but that's the most common one. So yeah, in the next, so I have 2 more videos on this opening, so that's my plan, covering like variations with knight e6, and not even just knight takes g5 like I showed, but even like maybe knight d4 after f5, something like that after f4 f5 also I can show you, and the mainline defense with c5 c6, knight c7 knight b5. So there'll be 2 videos on that, and then after that I'm going to show you this move e3, which is opening by white. And then so I plan to have like 3 videos on that, and then 1 video on g4 by white, and that would be it for the opening theory. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next video, and I hope that was helpful for you.